The freedom in vulnerability, there is a moment in every person's life when pretending becomes too heavy to carry. The masks, the armor, the "I'm fine" answers, they begin to feel like chains instead of protection. And then something unexpected happens, we get tired. Not defeated, not broken, just tired of performing. That moment, though uncomfortable, is a doorway. It's the place where vulnerability invites us to step into freedom. We live in a world that teaches us to keep our guard high, to be strong, to avoid emotional risks. Strength is often defined as being unshakable, unbothered, untouched. But the truth is, the people who live with the most courage are the ones who allow themselves to be seen. Not the polished version, not the rehearsed version, the real one. Vulnerability is not the opposite of strength. It is the expression of it. When we hide our struggles, we disconnect from others. When we avoid our emotions, we disconnect from ourselves. But when we choose to show up honestly, even shaking, even uncertain, we create space for connection. We open the door for compassion, trust, and belonging to enter. You see, vulnerability is not about oversharing. It's not about exposing every private detail of your life. Vulnerability is choosing to be present, real, and emotionally available in the moments that matter. It's saying, this is me, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. And that simple act is liberating. The freedom in vulnerability comes from releasing the burden of perfection. When you finally stop performing, something beautiful happens, you start living. Your relationships deepen, your confidence grows. You stop fearing judgment because you're no longer hiding. You recognize that your worth was never tied to how well you pretend. It was always in your authentic self. Courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being honest. Freedom isn't found in strength alone, it's found in choosing truth over appearances. If you want a life that feels real, one built on trust, connection, and purpose, you have to be willing to be seen. Not the version you think others want, the version that breathes. Vulnerability is not a weakness. It's the birthplace of love, creativity, resilience, and freedom. When you allow your heart to be open, you stop surviving and start living. And that is where true freedom begins, in the courage to be fully unapologetically human. One, vulnerability is the gateway to authentic connection. Real relationships are built on truth, not performance. When we let others see who we truly are, we create trust and meaningful bonds that cannot exist behind walls. Two, perfection is a prison, vulnerability sets you free. Trying to be flawless keeps us trapped in fear and self-doubt. Vulnerability helps us release unrealistic expectations and live with more compassion and self-acceptance. Three, courage is not the absence of fear, it's showing up despite fear. Choosing vulnerability means choosing courage. It requires stepping into discomfort and allowing ourselves to be real, even when the outcome is uncertain. Four, emotional honesty builds resilience. When we face our feelings instead of suppressing them, we become emotionally stronger, more grounded, and more capable of navigating life's challenges. Five, vulnerability creates space for creativity and growth. Innovation and personal development thrive when we stop worrying about judgment and start taking risks with our ideas, dreams, and emotions. Six, freedom comes from letting go of the armor. When we release the masks, the defenses, and the need to appear strong at all times, we discover a lighter, freer, more peaceful way of living. One, vulnerability is the gateway to authentic connection. Authentic connection, the kind that fills us up rather than drains us, doesn't come from perfection, from always having the right answers, or from presenting a polished image to the world. It comes from the willingness to show up as we are, unfiltered, messy, and real. Vulnerability is the key to unlocking this kind of connection because it allows us to step out from behind the masks we wear and meet others on a human-to-human level. Consider how often we hide our fears, doubts, or insecurities in daily life. We smile when we're hurting, nod when we're confused, and agree when we're actually skeptical. Over time, this constant performance creates distance, both from ourselves and from those around us. Others may sense that something isn't fully genuine, but they often cannot pinpoint what it is. This subtle disconnect keeps relationships superficial, no matter how frequent the interactions are. Vulnerability changes this dynamic. By allowing ourselves to be seen even in small ways, we signal to others that it's safe to do the same. Being vulnerable is not about oversharing every detail of our lives. It's about choosing honesty in moments that matter. It might be admitting uncertainty in a meeting, confessing a fear to a friend, or expressing a need in a romantic relationship. These moments are powerful because they bridge the gap between people, creating a shared understanding that goes beyond small talk or appearances. When one person shows authenticity, it naturally encourages others to drop their defenses, fostering a deeper, more genuine connection. Research in social psychology shows that relationships built on openness and vulnerability are not only more satisfying, but also more resilient. Couples who share their struggles and fears report higher levels of intimacy, while teams that embrace transparency experience better collaboration and trust. Vulnerability, therefore, is not just a personal choice, it is a social glue that strengthens bonds, both intimate and professional. Moreover, vulnerability helps dismantle the illusion of perfection. When we admit our imperfections, mistakes, or uncertainties, we allow others to do the same without fear of judgment. This mutual understanding cultivates empathy, compassion, and a sense of belonging. In this space, relationships evolve from transactional exchanges to deeply human connections, connections that nourish, inspire, and sustain us. Ultimately, vulnerability is a practice, not a one-time act. It requires courage to consistently show up as our authentic selves, especially in a world that often values strength and invulnerability over openness. But every time we take that step, we open the door to connection, to trust, and to love that is real and sustaining. In choosing vulnerability, we choose to live in full presence, letting others see us as we truly are, and in doing so, we invite them to do the same. That is the profound freedom and the transformative power of genuine human connection. 2. Perfection is a prison. Vulnerability sets you free. Perfection is a myth, yet it is one of the most persuasive illusions we live under. From a young age, we are taught to achieve, perform, and meet expectations, sometimes our own, often those of society, family, or peers. We internalize the message that mistakes are failures, flaws are weaknesses, and showing vulnerability is dangerous. Over time, these lessons build an invisible prison around us, one that is reinforced by fear and self-doubt. The pursuit of perfection keeps us safe on the surface, but deeply disconnected from our own humanity and from others. The problem with perfection is that it is exhausting. To maintain a flawless image, we constantly monitor our words, emotions, and actions. We overthink social interactions, suppress natural feelings, and measure our worth by accomplishments rather than authenticity. Every imperfection becomes a threat, every judgment a potential trap. This relentless striving leaves us anxious, isolated, and emotionally fatigued. In essence, perfection is not freedom. It is a cage that convinces us that our value depends on how well we perform. Vulnerability, however, offers an escape. To be vulnerable is to acknowledge that we are enough as we are. Even when we are flawed, uncertain, or imperfect, it is the conscious decision to embrace honesty over appearances, courage over control, and connection over judgment. By choosing vulnerability, we release the need to perform and begin to live more authentically. We start to understand that our humanity, our struggles, mistakes, and emotions is not something to hide, but the very foundation of meaningful living. The liberating power of vulnerability is evident in every area of life. In relationships, admitting mistakes or expressing emotions openly fosters trust and intimacy. In the workplace, acknowledging uncertainty or asking for help encourages collaboration and innovation. And within ourselves, accepting imperfections allows us to cultivate self-compassion, resilience, and a sense of inner peace. Vulnerability transforms fear into freedom because it shifts our focus from judgment to growth, from avoidance to presence. Moreover, vulnerability challenges the social constructs of perfection that keep us disconnected. By modeling authenticity, we invite others to do the same. When we embrace imperfection publicly, we dismantle the stigma of weakness and create spaces where empathy, creativity, and courage can flourish. Vulnerability becomes a ripple effect, spreading freedom through connections, communities, and cultures. Ultimately, perfection is a prison that asks us to deny our humanity, while vulnerability is the key that unlocks the door. It reminds us that our worth is inherent, not contingent on flawless performance or external approval. By stepping into vulnerability, we reclaim the freedom to live fully, authentically, and courageously. We stop performing and start experiencing life in its messy, beautiful entirety, and in that space, true liberation is found. 3. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's showing up despite fear. Many of us mistakenly believe that courage means being fearless, that to be brave, we must eliminate fear entirely. But the truth is far more liberating. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear, acknowledging it, and choosing to act anyway. It is the decision to step into the unknown, to risk judgment, and to be fully present even when we feel vulnerable. This distinction is critical because it redefines bravery as an active human experience rather than an unattainable standard of perfection. Fear is not a flaw, it is a natural part of being human. We feel afraid when we are about to take risks, when we are stepping outside our comfort zones, or when we are about to reveal something personal. It might be fear of failure, rejection, embarrassment, or even success. The problem arises when we let fear dictate our actions, when we hide, retreat, or numb ourselves to avoid discomfort. In doing so, we sacrifice opportunities for growth, connection, and fulfillment. Courage, however, asks us to show up anyway, to allow fear to coexist with action rather than preventing it. Showing up despite fear requires vulnerability. It means admitting uncertainty when you don't have all the answers, expressing your feelings even when you might be judged, and taking risk even when the outcome is unknown. Vulnerability and courage are inseparable because the act of being seen fully and authentically is inherently risky. Every time we open ourselves to possibility, we expose ourselves to criticism or disappointment. Yet every time we do, we also open the door to love, trust, and personal growth. The paradox of courage is that it grows with practice. Each time we act despite fear, we build confidence in our ability to navigate discomfort. Small acts of bravery accumulate, reinforcing the belief that we are capable of handling life's uncertainties. Over time, courage becomes a muscle, one that allows us to face bigger challenges, pursue meaningful goals, and create authentic connections. Importantly, courage is not performative. It is quiet, humble, and often invisible to others. It is the private choices we make when no one is watching that shape the trajectory of our lives. Courage also transforms our relationships. When we show up honestly with our fears and vulnerabilities, we invite others to do the same. This creates deeper trust, empathy, and understanding. People are drawn not to perfection, but to authenticity. By modeling courage, we normalize human imperfection and create spaces where others feel safe to be themselves. Ultimately, courage is a daily choice. It is not a single heroic act, but a series of intentional decisions to engage with life fully, to speak our truth, and to embrace uncertainty. Fear will always be present, but it no longer controls us. By choosing courage, we reclaim agency over our lives, build resilience, and open the door to freedom that comes only when we are willing to be seen imperfect, human, and boldly alive. 4. Emotional honesty builds resilience. Resilience is often misunderstood as the ability to withstand stress or bounce back from adversity without showing weakness. But true resilience is not about suppressing our emotions or pretending everything is fine. It is about facing life fully with honesty and openness, even when it is uncomfortable. Emotional honesty, the willingness to acknowledge, feel, and express our emotions, is one of the most powerful tools for building this kind of resilience. By confronting our feelings rather than avoiding them, we develop inner strength that is authentic, sustainable, and deeply human. When we ignore or repress our emotions, we create internal pressure that inevitably finds release in unhealthy ways: stress, anxiety, conflict, or even physical illness. Suppression may offer a temporary sense of control, but it comes at a cost. Emotional avoidance weakens our capacity to adapt, respond, and recover from challenges. In contrast, emotional honesty allows us to process experiences as they are, understand ourselves better, and make thoughtful decisions instead of reactive ones. This clarity is the cornerstone of resilience. It equips us to navigate life's difficulties with wisdom and grace. Emotional honesty also strengthens our connections with others. When we are willing to share our true feelings, fear, joy, sorrow, or uncertainty, we invite others into a space of mutual trust and understanding. People are drawn to authenticity. They respond to vulnerability with empathy. By expressing our emotions openly, we model courage and integrity, showing that it is safe to acknowledge humanity in all its complexity. This not only deepens relationships, but also creates social support, which is one of the most critical factors in resilience. No one thrives in isolation, and emotional honesty allows us to lean on each other without shame. Moreover, emotional honesty fosters self-awareness and self-compassion. When we acknowledge our feelings without judgment, we learn to recognize patterns, triggers, and needs that were previously hidden or ignored. This self-knowledge allows us to respond to challenges with greater patience and understanding, both toward ourselves and others. It also helps break cycles of shame, guilt, or blame, which are common obstacles to resilience. By practicing emotional honesty, we cultivate a stable internal foundation that can weather uncertainty, stress, and adversity more effectively. Importantly, emotional honesty does not mean oversharing or dumping emotions on others indiscriminately. It is a mindful, intentional practice. It is choosing the right time, place, and way to express feelings authentically. Even small acts, admitting vulnerability in a conversation, acknowledging frustration instead of hiding it, or sharing gratitude openly strengthen our resilience over time. Each act reinforces the understanding that our emotions are valid, navigable, and not something to be feared. Ultimately, resilience is not about being unbreakable. It is about being honest, adaptable, and connected. Emotional honesty is the bridge between the challenges we face and the strength we cultivate. It empowers us to confront life fully, to process adversity without denial, and to rise stronger from each experience. By embracing our emotions and expressing them courageously, we transform vulnerability into a source of enduring power, proving that resilience is not built by avoiding feelings, but by engaging with them honestly and courageously. 5, vulnerability creates space for creativity and growth. Many people associate vulnerability with weakness, discomfort, or risk, but in reality, vulnerability is the birthplace of some of our most profound personal and creative breakthroughs. To create, to innovate, and to grow, we must allow ourselves to step into the unknown, to face uncertainty, and to risk judgment. These are inherently vulnerable acts. Without vulnerability, growth becomes stagnant and creativity remains trapped in fear. Think about the creative process, whether it's writing, painting, problem solving, or inventing something new. Creativity demands that we leave behind the safety of what is known and predictable. It asks us to experiment, make mistakes, and risk failure. And yet fear of judgment or criticism often holds us back. We avoid sharing our ideas too soon, we second guess our instincts, and we hide our true potential behind the mask of safe decisions. Vulnerability disrupts this cycle. When we allow ourselves to be seen, even imperfectly, we unlock the freedom to explore, imagine, and take risks that can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Growth, similarly, requires vulnerability. Personal development is rarely linear. It involves facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves, confronting habits that no longer serve us, and making difficult choices to evolve. Each of these steps demands courage, the courage to admit mistakes, to ask for help, to confront fear, and to embrace discomfort. Vulnerability is the pathway through which these transformative experiences become possible. By leaning into discomfort rather than avoiding it, we learn more about ourselves, expand our capabilities, and develop resilience that cannot be cultivated through perfection or pretense. Importantly, vulnerability fosters authenticity. When we take creative or personal risks, we are revealing our true selves, our ideas, our emotions, our dreams. This openness invites others to engage with us more deeply, creating collaboration, innovation, and mutual inspiration. Teams, communities, and relationships thrive when vulnerability is present because it signals that it is safe to explore, experiment, and challenge the status quo without fear of ridicule. In essence, vulnerability is both an individual and collective catalyst for growth. Furthermore, vulnerability encourages experimentation and learning. Mistakes are no longer threats, but opportunities. Each failure, each critique, each moment of uncertainty becomes a stepping stone for refinement and improvement. Vulnerability teaches us that growth is not the absence of failure, but the willingness to keep trying, learning, and expanding despite it. It transforms discomfort into possibility, fear into insight, and hesitation into action. Ultimately, the creative and personal growth that vulnerability enables is liberating. It frees us from the constraints of perfection, fear, and pretense. It allows us to live more fully, dream more boldly, and contribute more meaningfully to the world. By embracing vulnerability, we cultivate the courage to imagine, to experiment, and to evolve, unlocking the fullest potential of who we are and what we can offer. Vulnerability, far from being a limitation, is the gateway to growth, creativity, and ultimately the fulfillment of our human potential. 6, freedom comes from letting go of the armor. For much of our lives, we carry invisible armor, protective layers built to shield us from judgment, rejection, disappointment, and pain. This armor might look like perfectionism, overachievement, sarcasm, or emotional withdrawal. It can be subtle or overt, conscious or unconscious. At first, it feels protective. even necessary. But over time, this armor becomes heavy, restrictive, and isolating. It keeps us from truly experiencing life and connecting with others. The paradox is that what we believe protects us actually limits us. True freedom, the kind that allows us to live fully and authentically, comes from consciously choosing to remove it. Letting go of armor requires vulnerability, the courage to reveal our true selves, flaws and all, to the world. It means acknowledging our fears and insecurities instead of hiding them, admitting mistakes instead of covering them up, and expressing our emotions honestly rather than masking them. Armor may have been effective at preventing hurt, but it also prevents love, joy, creativity, and authentic connection from entering our lives. Freedom comes when we take the risk to set the armor aside, understanding that being seen as we truly are is worth more than the illusion of invulnerability. The first step in letting go is self-awareness. We must recognize the ways in which we protect ourselves and understand the motivations behind these behaviors. Perhaps we overwork to gain approval, stay quiet to avoid conflict, or keep relationships at a distance to prevent emotional exposure. Identifying these patterns is not a judgment. It is an act of courage and honesty. Once we see the armor for what it is, we can begin to make intentional choices about when and how to release it. Letting go also requires trust in ourselves, trust in others, and trust in life's process. It means believing that our value is inherent and not contingent on perfection or approval. When we shed the armor, we are taking a stand for our own humanity, showing the world that we are enough as we are. This act is transformative, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. People respond to authenticity with authenticity, creating deeper relationships and more meaningful connections. Importantly, letting go of armor is not a one-time event. It is a continual practice, a daily commitment to show up, to risk, and to embrace vulnerability. Some days, fear will tempt us back into old protective habits. Other days, courage will propel us forward. The key is consistency and self-compassion, recognizing that each moment of authentic engagement strengthens our freedom and resilience. Ultimately, freedom comes from releasing the illusion that we must be invulnerable to survive. Armor protects, yes, but it also isolates. Vulnerability liberates. When we let down our defenses, we discover the fullness of life, the depth of connection, the richness of emotion, and the beauty of being truly seen. In choosing to shed the armor, we step into a life of authenticity, courage, and liberation. This is the profound truth. The path to freedom is not in hiding, but in revealing, not in protecting, but in trusting, and not in perfection, but in wholehearted, unapologetic humanity. Conclusion, embracing the freedom in vulnerability. As we come to the close of this journey together, it's important to pause and reflect on the transformative power we've explored today, the power of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not weakness, and it is certainly not something to fear. It is the doorway to freedom, connection, and authenticity. Throughout this speech, we have seen how choosing to be vulnerable allows us to break free from the heavy chains of perfection, fear, and pretense. Each step we take toward showing up as our true selves brings us closer to living fully, courageously, and intentionally. When we embrace vulnerability, we are not only giving ourselves permission to be human, we are reclaiming the life that was always meant for us. Authentic connection is born from vulnerability. When we allow ourselves to be seen, truly seen without masks or defenses, we invite others into the same courageous space. Relationships deepen, trust is built, and empathy flourishes. The walls we once built to protect ourselves begin to crumble, revealing the beauty of shared humanity. By leaning into discomfort rather than retreating from it, we create bonds that are not superficial but enduring. Vulnerability teaches us that connection is not about perfection or control. It is about presence, honesty, and the willingness to meet others as they are. And in these moments of openness, we discover a profound sense of belonging and love that cannot be manufactured or faked. Perfection and fear have long been mistaken for strength, but they are in reality prisons that limit our potential. True courage is not about being fearless. It is about taking action despite fear, stepping into uncertainty, and showing up authentically every single day. Emotional honesty strengthens our resilience and allows us to process life's challenges with grace. Each moment of vulnerability, whether it is admitting a mistake, expressing a need, or sharing a deeply held fear, is a declaration of courage. By practicing this consistently, we build an inner foundation that is unshakable, not because we are immune to pain, but because we have learned to face it with authenticity and wisdom. Vulnerability is also the engine of growth and creativity. It invites us to step beyond what is comfortable, to experiment, to fail, and to try again without fear of judgment. When we release the armor that shields us from discomfort, we open ourselves to learning, transformation, and new possibilities. Every risk taken in honesty, every emotion expressed, and every moment of openness expands our capacity for empathy, innovation, and fulfillment. By letting go of the illusion of invulnerability, we reclaim the joy, creativity, and freedom that are essential parts of the human experience. In closing, I want to thank you for allowing yourself to be present with these ideas today. Thank you for taking the time to reflect, to feel, and to consider the courage it takes to live vulnerably. As you leave this space, carry this message with you. The freedom you seek is not found in perfection, control, or avoidance. It is found in the courage to be seen, to feel deeply, and to show up authentically in every aspect of your life. Step forward with an open heart, embrace your humanity, and know that each act of vulnerability brings you closer to the life you were meant to live. From the depths of my heart, thank you. Be brave, be real, and above all, be unapologetically you. Goodbye. And may your journey toward freedom in vulnerability be filled with courage, connection, and endless possibility.